How many hours of news do you think a typical person should consume each week?
Ooh, that's interesting. I don't know. It depends who you are and what you're doing, and also depends do you enjoy consuming news or not.
Yeah.
I think the bigger question actually is like give it for a given number of hours of news, how are you consuming it?
Hmm.
A lot of people I think they are consuming news and what they're consuming is political entertainment.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's
That's
different.
that's what I'm doing a lot of the time. I'm like,
Right.
yeah,
You know, there's some noise in the signal of Twitter, but if you're just like if the way you get your political news is Twitter, I would say you're not really getting news at a depth that maybe you think you are, right? It's a
yeah.
feeling of knowing everything, but what you know is a conversation, not the depth behind the conversation.
Hmm.
And I can tell you because I know a lot about Twitter analytics, most people don't click through the links. Like there are
Yeah.
a lot of links on Twitter. There's not a lot of readership through links on Twitter. So that's one thing. I think it's really important for people to try to consume some local news. You know, you should not your diet of information should not be all national and international. If it's so heavily weighted there that you basically don't know the name of, let's say you're in America, your state senator and your state, your representative, you need to make sure you're reading something local. So you're developing that set of ideas, political identity. People have a lot more of power and effect on their local politics. So I think
Hmm.
that's really important. I don't think people need to consume more news than they want to consume, but I think a lot of people are consuming news in an inefficient, polarizing, and kind of like addicting way that makes us all feel bad. And look, I'm part of this system too. I talk about this a lot in my book, but I'll say just for Twitter, I have gone back and forth for years on what my relationship to Twitter should be.
Yeah.
So I have a very big Twitter audience. I think like 2.7 million people there. Probably they're all bots. But it's a very like I can go to Twitter and I can write a thread in 5 minutes and it'll get thousands of retweets and I can look on the analytics. It's like 100,000 people saw this and it feels kind of great. And also, I don't think it's a good ecosystem. I think that most
Yeah.
people on there a lot feel agitated and upset. I think it pulls bad behavior out of people. So for a long time, I basically stopped tweeting except for out articles. But I also felt that I wasn't like in this conversation. My basic view on things right now is that the news and like the conversation, capital C, has migrated to not great platforms. And there's not really great answers for individuals about what to do about it. But if you're an individual consuming the news, I don't think you necessarily need to be there. You'll get more out of reading. I actually really like reading some of the news apps. So I have like, if you look at my phone, I have Vox's homepage like saved as a tile.
Hmm.
I have the New York Times like app, and I have the New Yorker app. And I really like the three of those. I find actually apps to be a really nice reading experience, although Vox doesn't have an app, it has a nice responsive website. And so that's how I do a lot of my consumption. And then, of course, I have the LA Times app, which is where I get a lot of my California news.